Okay, so now we talk about the joining steel member. So let's review joining member, how you connect the beam and column. So they have several different options to connect. The first option, you can connect. Okay. So now you can consider to build the structural metal frame, we have to consider connection between the beam and column member. So they have several different connection method. So let's look at the one by one. So you can see here, you can see the beam and column connected by the bolt. So first consideration, you might see the riveting. The first riveting, the riveting is the permanent joining option, and it is mostly found in historic building. You can see the Eiffel Tower, it used the riveting. So let's see the process. The first, the place is heated rivet. You can see the second image, you can see the heated rivet over the punched hole. Then the rivet into the punched hole, then striking the rivet by hammer or compactors. After several striking the rivet, the tail will expand. You can see the end of a rivet, they have a tail. The tail will expand and it fills the hole tightly. So you can also find out this riveting from the ship making place. Okay, so let's see the next kind of a pretty short the video how the riveting process works in the factory. Watch it together. Oops, it's too loud. You see the heated riveting and simply replace to the hole, and then using the compactor, it compacted the tail, and then it expands and then fill the hole. Okay, so now we talk about the bolting. The bolting is the most common joining method in current days. So there's a two bolt type. The carbon steel bolt, the mostly in use for the holding temporary connection, or in use the light framing element. So mostly you can just find the carbon steel bolt when you use. But now you can consider about the high strength bolt for the structurally connection. The high strength bolt is stronger than common bolt. It is used for the fastening the primary structure member. So also you have to be understanding how your bolt connection is enough to the connecting between the structure member and your bolt. How you check. So when you want to check adequate tightness on your bolt connection, you might consider the tension control bolt or indicator washer. So first one, indicator washer. See the first image. This is the indicator washer. So indicator washer, when the bolt adequate tension is achieved, the washer squirt become dying. It means change the color when it reach to the adequate the tension. It means visually is visually inspect. Also tension control bolt. When it has the adequate tightness, the spline, which is the tail part, is and snaps off. So means you can simply the compactor and then bolt the connecting together, and then they reach the tightness. This tail snips off. So simply you can see the verified adequate tightness. So you can also have a visual inspection. So next type is the load indicator washer. Load indicator washer is more about hearing inspection. It locates between the bolt and the metal surface. When it reaches adequate tensioning, it makes some sound for the confirmation. So you can see some extrusion part of from the metal ring, and then it has a tightness, and then when it has tightness, it makes some creaking sound. So you have a visually confirmed, the hearing confirmed audible confirmation, it leads to the adequate tension for your design. So just kind of see how it works. So you can see the bolt and the load indicator washer and the place under between the metal, and then when it leads to that and then it making the sound, it is audible verification. It leads to the enough the tightness between the two members. Okay. So next one is welding. If you need more tension, you need to weld your joint. Welding is the fabrication process that join the materials. Steel surface can be joined from the electrode. You see the electrode here, and then adding some pieces, and then start to welding and connecting the two pieces. But also have to be understanding, you should confirm the stability, because about the welding is performed by the human. Sometimes it has some error, so that's why you have to be confirm the stability. In this case, it can be inspected by ultrasonic to find the hidden flaw. So after the welding it, you have to find out the flaw. So it means you can using this ultrasonic to find the hidden flaw. So now we talk about the stabilized and building connection. I think this is a really important point, how you understanding about to making a stronger connection to designing your structure member. So first one, before we introducing about the stabilizing the building connection, you understanding about the dead and live load. You remember the dead and live load is vertical load. Also, you have to be understanding about the horizontal load, which is the lateral forces. The lateral forces happening from the earthquake and the wind. Okay, so this is the wind forces, earthquake forces that provide horizontal movement. It is called as the lateral forces. So this kind of a connection is well support vertical load, which is dead and live load, but it has the many problem to support and sustain the lateral forces. So now I just want to talk about how you can support lateral forces from the metal connection. So first image you can see, this is a simple connection between the beam and column. This is one single joint here. But you just kind of imagine, if you have lateral forces, which is horizontal forces, the structure will collapse, right? Because it is only designing for the vertical load. But how you support the lateral forces? First one, you can consider about the diagonal bracing. What is about the diagonal bracing? You're designing this bracing between the structure member. It is very well to support the lateral forces because it's giving the additional the structure point. But remember, the diagonal bracing is only for the lateral forces. It is not for the vertical forces. Okay. So also you can see there's two different diagonal bracing. The first one is concentric truss bracing and the eccentric truss bracing. Concentric truss bracing, which is the structure system, so it is kind of always meeting the single point. You can see this meaning the single point and the corner, and then this is a corner connection. What is about the eccentric truss bracing? It is kind of meeting in the middle of the place. Okay, this connecting here. So this is a difference between the concentric and eccentric. But you can imagine which the bracing type is much stronger. You have to be remember eccentric is more the stronger connection compared to the concentric truss bracing. The eccentric bracing, it is usually using for extreme seismic condition and absorbing the dynamic energy of earthquake. Okay, so mostly San Francisco using this eccentric because earthquake is pretty serious. So that's why you have to be using the proper bracing type. It is usually provided from the structure engineer, but you have to be understanding what is meaning about the concentric, what is meaning about the eccentric. You have to be also understanding why structure engineer provide eccentric the truss bracing for our design. Okay. So John Hancock here, X bracing. So they're using the X bracing, reduce the lateral load on the exterior column. So means this is actually very structurally functioning design. Also remember, it is also very well supporting the lateral pulses. Also, it is kind of a visual impact of the design. I think this is a really good design because they consider about the actual functioning effect. Also, they consider about the actual aesthetic part as well. So although the X bracing is massive and slightly block the view from the interior space, however, it is the John Hancock building signature exterior feature. That's why I heard who stay in this building, the rental cost of the interior space passing the X bracing is more expensive. So just kind of understanding how architect consider about the structure and how architect using this structure member to designing the facade. I think this is a very good example to understanding about this feature. So next one is the moment resisting frame. So how you just kind of same issue. The first option is diagonal bracing to support the lateral forces. And the second is moment resisting frame. Simply when you make out the very stronger connection between the beam and column, right? So you can actually sustain the lateral forces. So how you making the stronger connection between the member? So you can have a shear connection and moment connection. The shear connection is normal connection. This is simply we can call the pin connection between the beam and column using the steel plate. However, structural engineer required the stronger connection against the lateral forces. You have to be consider the moment resisting frame. The moment resisting frame is very similar as the shear connection. However, it connected by the plate, but you have to be adding the stiffener, and then you have to be welding all around the connection perimeter. So you provide a much stronger connection between the column and beam, and usually structural engineer ask you guys to provide this location have to be moment resisting frame, but you have to be understanding why we have to provide these types about the frame. Also, usually structure field, the moment resisting frame, the highlighting the stripe, the yellow stripe. So people just kind of perceived, oh, this is a kind of a important the connection to resist the lateral forces. Okay. Next type, the shear wall. Simply, when you want to make a stable wall, a stable connection, you simply design the wall between the connection and filling some solid pieces. It actually giving the better resisting the lateral forces. So the shear wall is structurally system composed of the braced panel, also known as a shear panel, for standing lateral load acting on the structure. So you have to be continuous wall. Okay, so this is a support the lateral forces. Also, it can be inside or it can be outside. However, I usually adding the shear wall inside, because when you're having the shear wall outside, it is limited to design the facade design. Also, the shear wall mostly usually using the concrete. However, when you're using the type 5 or type 4 construction, you might consider using the plywood and wood frame construction for the design. Okay. So most shear wall locate on the building core, the reinforced concrete core that will contain the vertical surface and act as a stabilizing shear wall. So this continuous wall just provide the stronger connection and then also sustain the lateral forces. So now we talk about the steel frame connection. So there were several different connections between the column and beam. So let's look at this one. So column, you can see column and beam, it is simply connected by the metal plate. Okay, and then this metal plate with a bolt and the bolt joint here. So you have to be also remember about some terminology about the beam. The top and bottom of the beam, it is called as the flange, and then side, it can called as the web. Okay, and the column is same thing, is the web, and then these two is the flange. Okay, so now we can see more in the detail how you actually connect the flange web through the column and beam. Okay, So there's a two connection I already introduced, the shear connection and moment connection. The shear connection is normal connection between the column and beam through the metal plate. So it is also called as the pin connection because it's only have a one single connection between the column and the beam. This is a one single connection to support the beam from the column. Okay. However, if you require the moment resisting connection to sustain the lateral forces, you have to be consider the moment connection. It is very similar as the SHEAR connection. However, you have to be welding the pieces all around some structure member and then have to be adding the stiffener here. So this stiffener enhanced some connection between column and beam. Okay, and then giving the better the resisting from the lateral forces. So I just kind of making out the very simple modeling out. You just kind of understanding what is the difference between the moment connection and shear connection. So first, this is a moment connection. You can see the stiffener, and also you can see the welding, and you can see the another welding all around the beam perimeter. Okay, it's much stronger connection. However, the shear connection doesn't have any welding, doesn't have any the stiffener. They're simply having the pin joint here, right? You have to be understanding what is different between the shear connection and moment connection. Okay. Next one, so more connection type. First one, the connect wide flange beam and column web with angled plate. You can see the angled plate in top and bottom. And then we connect the from the column the web, okay, and then it's connecting the plate to the beam flange. Okay, so this is a kind of connection type. And the second connection type is pretty similar as the first one, but it is shear tab, which is adding these pieces, okay, and then adding the welding all around the perimeter. It giving a much stronger connection compared to the first one. And then the last one, this using the end plate. This is the end plate here. This is connected from the column. Okay, it is mostly the prefabricate from the factory, and then simply bring the end plate with the column and the beam, and then simply assemble on the side. So next one, how you can connect the column to column, how you can connect the column to column, having the two different options. The first one is bolt connection. Just kind of column and column, and you just bring it out the plate and simply bolting down to connecting together. But if you need a more the stronger connection, you just kind of using the column splice. Okay, and then just kind of a temporary holding is less the bolting connection because it's kind of welding all around this plate. It can be making some welding connection between the two columns. Okay, just kind of understanding what is different, the bolted column and this is a welded connection. Okay, and this is the last video to summarize the representing connection. Let's watch this video together. Okay. There are lots of different the connection type. You can summarize yourself through the animation. Okay, so today we just discussed about the history of the metal, and then we also talk about the different metal type, and then also talk about how you produce the metal in a factory, and we also talk about the different finish type, and also we talk about the different connection type. So there's a three different the connection, the resisting, the lateral forces, which is the bracing and the movement frame and the shear wall. So please remember that these things this is really important to understanding how we can resisting the lateral forces. And then we also more to talk about the framed connection. There were several different framed connection between the beam and column to column or beam to beam. So you have to be understanding how it connecting together. So I think today is kind of a really important topic to understanding about this design. But please review yourself. But let me know if you have any question. Okay. So we continue to talk about the matter on the next lecture. Okay. Thank you guys.